Good evening, everybody. Today we're starting off with the second chapter of PMBOK, and this chapter deals with the concepts surrounding our project. Previously, in the first chapter, we did talk about a lot many things which were the overall reference to context, how projects come into being and what is the circumstance in which this project exists, what is the relationship of project with the organizational strategy and what else is there like programs and portfolios and PMOs. So we did discuss all that. But in this chapter, we are not going to discuss uh, programs and portfolios and things like that. Although alignment with the strategic objectives will always be looked into, and we will always, whatever we'll be doing in the project, we will keep our project aligned with the organizational objectives. So today we are talking about organizational influences and project life cycle. In this we have got a number of topics to cover. Organizational influences are those things which somehow directly or indirectly can impact your project. So we will discuss how culture and style affects the project, how communication styles are the communication mechanism in an organization that affects the project. Organizational structures, we did talk about the functional metrics and the project ties. Now we are going to really go into the detail of each one of them and we'll understand them better. Then we have a unique concept from PMBOK, and that is organizational process assets and enterprise environmental factors. We will get aware with this. In the previous chapter, we talked about organizational stakeholders and organizational governance, and I did set some ground for the lower level stakeholders and lower level governances. So we will here talk about the project stakeholders and project governance. So we will take them one by one, like project stakeholders and project governance, and ultimately project success will be defined. Then in the third topic, we talk about the project team, how it is composed, who all have what kind of role to play in this. And finally, last but not the least, is the project life cycle, a very, very important topic which we will have to follow in the rest of the course we'll be conducting. So what are the characteristics of a project life cycle and what are the project phases? We will get very clear about it. Organizational influences on project management, as I said, we'll talk about these 5 things: culture, style, communication, structure, OPAs, organizational process assets in short, and EEFs, that is enterprise environmental factor in short. Okay, first of all, we do understand that every project might have a different surrounding environment, and every environment does have its own culture, style, and structure. The reporting structure, how the things are managed in this organization. So it is greatly dependent on which organization this project is a part of. Whatever is the organizational culture and the style and the structure will definitely influence the project. The way of working of the people will be inherited by the project. Although projects are a bit different from normal operations, in which we are more focused, we are result oriented, we are going into a temporary endeavor, we are taking on a challenge, but still we are living among the same people. It is the same culture. So we'll see how culture impacts a project, or we'll also see how a project can impact an organizational culture. An organization's degree of project management maturity and its systems, project management systems, can also influence the projects. Yesterday we did talk about the mature organizations. We said an organization which does understand what is the business value, what are the strategic alignments, how they can be achieved through projects, programs and portfolios. Such an organization which have such an understanding would be a mature organization, and definitely they would not only be doing projects, but they will also be handling programs and portfolios in their organization. So this counts towards an organization which is more aware, more mature. We have the project management standard, which is the PMBOK guide. We have the program management standard. We have the portfolio management standard. All of these standards do give us the good practices. Now, if we can follow all the good practices in an organization, we are pretty much fine with this concept. But at the same time, if we are trying to be the best, we are trying to enhance and improve, remaining within those good practices, then we will actually start a journey towards the best practices, and then we'll be competing with other organizations in project management, and that's how we will actually rise above others, and this is where we get the maturity. Remember, standards always give you good practices, whereas maturity models give you best practices and a mechanism to measure where you stand in comparison with others, your competitors. So project management maturity is that your organization is not only following the standards, but it is doing more than that. It is excelling. It has become a center of excellence. It is improving, it is enhancing. So if an organization is mature in project management specifically, that is going to count towards the way and the mechanism they adopt in doing their projects. Now the mechanism they adopt is such a mature organization would lay out a system for managing the projects as a whole for the organization. An immature organization would not have a project management system, and they would be relying on day-to-day decision making as far as these projects are concerned. And every time, every project may have its own plan, its own mechanism, but project management system is a kind of a framework which is provided to all the projects within the organization to follow. So it would include the templates, it would include the software, it will include a lot many things which will help them do their job consistently across all the projects. Now, if we talk about project management system, this is a physical system we are talking about, then we must realize that this system must be in accordance with some governance structure, which we just discussed yesterday from the organizational perspective. But if we are talking about project management, we will be studying the project governance, then project governance would be the main criteria based on which we will be doing all this. When a project involves external entities, maybe your project is not run under one organization, it is a joint venture, or it is kind of a partnering amongst various organizations. In that case, your project is not being governed by a single culture. More than one organizations are influencing your project, and naturally there is a race by all the organizations. Whomsoever is more stronger would like their culture implemented, their systems, their maturity levels must be used in the project. Now, generally speaking, the leading organization normally gives their systems to the project, but at the same time, project manager is in a very tight spot here, because all the stakeholders, especially those who are partnering, they would all require and demand to be from the project manager that he would be following their style, their culture, and their structure. And you do have to accommodate as well. Maybe they need reports in a specific format for one organization and in another format for another organization. Project manager has to abide by both. So project manager is really in a very tight spot when he is being governed by more than one organizations, when more than one organizations are participating in this project. So nobody should think that project management is kind of a separate thing. This is a separate challenge which is being taken, and therefore it is not governed by any organizational influences. Organizational influences do have impact on the project, and if there are more than one organizations, then there is a tough competition between these various organization rules and regulations. So this chapter will deal with the organizational characteristics, factors and assets within an enterprise that are likely to influence the project. First, coming over to the culture and style. What is a culture? How does an organization form or adopt a culture? You see, what is your opinion about it? Yes, please. Asad, how does this culture come into an organization? Yes, Mohsen? Can you?
Sir, culture can be, sir, defined as the whole environment of the like the working place. It depends on the people who are like contributing or who are in that organization, and also the management style of the organization. Like some organizations could have like pretty strict in such things. These are not related completely to the work point of view, but overall human dealing within the office, I would say.
So if I say that it evolves in an organization, would that be correct?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat that?
I say if I say that culture evolves spontaneously in an organization, would that be correct?
Yes, sir, that can be true, uh, depending on certain things, like how much is it allowed to be evolved, like
Mhm.
uh, how much flexible the organization or the administration, I would say, is to let things happen.
So that essentially means that culture is being controlled as well. Somebody is trying to enforce something into the culture. So this is
I
not.
think, yes, sir, it can be. I mean, it does evolve, but it can be controlled. Like, for example, I would say that nowadays the organizations are becoming more like, for example, I would say casual, like like it's not too much restricted. In big corporations, I would say, like for example, the dress code, it's becoming casual, easy timing, to accommodate and facilitate the employees, and other like interactive activities which make work more fun nowadays, to rather than the old type of organizations in which things are really strict. Like we can see that kind of stuff in our governmental organizations, like the environment is kind of boring.
Right. So That means the organization has allowed this evolution of the culture. Naturally, organization allowed it to happen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But there were certain things which were trying to evolve and get their place into the organization, and organization is somehow trying to manage them and introduce those things which might be more suitable for the organization. But sometimes the cultural pressure could be such that it has to be adopted. On the other hand, when the organization is set up for the very first time, they will establish some cultural rules and guidelines, and they will try to run the organization according to that guideline. But naturally, when the people were hired into the organization, the temperament of the people, the way of working and all that, that will try to, evolve a culture in the organization which may not be liked by the organization, which may be snubbed or something, but sometimes the pressure of culture would be such that it has to be accepted. And sometimes organization will themselves welcome change, welcome this evolution of the culture, and that's how an organization keeps shaping into better organization. So this was the point which I was trying to make here, that organizations do have cultures. Culture is initially injected when the organizations are formed. Like you see, you can take the examples of defense forces. In defense forces, there's a lot of discipline. So that is inherent in any defense organization, that they will be disciplined, they will be on time, they would be, doing things in a specific manner. But as and when people join these defense organizations, uh, they bring in their culture from where they have come, the language they speak and all that. Maybe there are more people from a specific region and they start speaking in that language and they start adopting those cultural habits within the organization. And if organization feels there is no problem, it can accommodate them. Maybe organization feels that this is making groups within the organization and they do not want to allow this, so they can take certain measures. Maybe sometimes those measures taken are not really acceptable by the people, and they force their way up. So there is only two ways: either you fire everybody and hire new staff, and then try to enforce whatever kind of culture you are dreaming of, or you accept the change and compromise on that. So anyways, this is give and take, and over a long period of time, organizations groom into a certain behavior. So that culture, the way of working, this all becomes a habit. Now, a project which is being undertaken under such an organization would have the same culture inherited to it, the same working style inherited to it. Like there is an organization, as you were just giving the example, flexi timing. Like in defense forces, there is no possibility of flexi timing. They work maybe 9 to 5, and that is very strict. But if they are doing a project, or they are doing something which cannot be done in these time limits, maybe due to the nature of the work job, maybe due to the people who are working on it, they cannot work uh, their best in this timing, and maybe they may have to introduce a flexi time or something like that. So that would be introduced, that would be allowed in that organization. If it is allowed once, then it may become a habit ultimately, that whenever we are doing this kind of job, we will have flexi timings and things like that. Maybe IT departments in defense forces may have flexi timing. They may adopt this specific practice, and they make it a part of their culture with exceptions. So whatever the organization's culture and style, that is going to affect how a project is to be conducted. And naturally that will also impose some kind of restrictions or limitations or constraints on the project sometimes. Cultures and styles may have strong influence on a project's ability to meet its objectives. You see, if the culture in the organization is of procrastination, everybody is delaying jobs and resting a lot and relaxing and not really doing enough job, and that is a habit in the organization. Normally, you will see this in government organizations. Government organizations, they have got this kind of attitude that they are not really bothered about the job. They are just passing their time in office. So in such an organization, if a project has to be done, project will have a lot of challenges. No matter how good the project manager is, how good the project team is, but when they are existing within this organization, there are certain influences and very strong influences on the project's ability to meet its objectives. So culture and styles are group phenomena. They are normally known as cultural norms, and they develop over time. They do not, develop in one night. You can't impose them just like that. Even if you have imposed certain cultural norms right from the beginning, even they have to be changed under pressure. But at the same time, naturally, organization, as I said, will definitely like to, you know, have control over the cultural norms. Okay. The norms include a common knowledge regarding how to approach getting the work done, what means are considered acceptable for getting the job done, and who is influential in facilitating the working of getting that job done. So, what is the procedure in that organization of doing a job? How people in this organization approach the work? What is acceptable and what is not acceptable when you are doing that job? And who holds the authority, who allows you to do that job, or who authorizes that job? This would be different from organization to organization. Sometimes it happens that the person shown on top is just a figurehead and he doesn't give any orders, he doesn't give any permissions. There is another person who probably holds all the authority, and the top guy is not involved in decision making. So whichever organization you are from, you have to recognize to whom you should address your problems, where you should go for approvals. So whenever you join a new organization, you have to understand the cultural norm of that organization. You just cannot change the culture of an organization overnight. So initially, you have to work according to those norms, and maybe you can introduce certain good practices into that culture, and ultimately that culture may evolve into even better cultural norms, and ultimately they can be adopted. That is very much possible even from projects, because projects have a very different mentality. People are not working 9 to 5 there. People on projects, they are working from target to target, deadline to deadline, and therefore they are more committed. They have to produce something by the end of the project. So they are more committed. So the organizations which run projects, they learn a lot from the projects, and their cultural norms do get updated accordingly. So you see, it is a both-way traffic. Firstly and primarily, it is the organizational norms which are affecting the project, but project may evolve certain practices which may be adopted by the organizations in long run. Organizational culture is shaped by the common experiences of the members of the organization. Most organizations have developed unique cultures over time by practice and common usage. I'll just give you an example. Like, you see, you you belong to a multinational organization, and they have got their headquarters in USA, and you have got offices in Pakistan, India, Dubai, everywhere. An organization is a multinational, and they have got their own culture. They will try to impose that international culture or you can say the corporate culture on all their offices. But the people working in Pakistan and the people working in Dubai and the people working in India might have different cultural values. Like, you can see the religious values. A Muslim will have to say his prayers, and he would expect that he would be allowed to say his prayers. He would be given small little break to go out and say his prayers. If the organization says that this is not in our cultural ground and you can't say your prayers, then probably the people may revolt. So whatever cultural values are there, they are somehow adopted locally. Like, you see, you have got a KFC in Dubai, and that is, although an international chain, but it is selling the local taste dishes there. Alongside the international dishes, some of the items are influenced by the local culture. Similarly, I can take the example of Heathrow Airport. This is one huge airport where almost every flight touches down. So you are traveling from anywhere to anywhere in this world, probably you will touch down in Heathrow airports someday. So all religions, all types of people, all categories of people, small, big, huge, all types of people do visit Heathrow at some point in time. They all are from different religions also. So what they have done is they have created a huge prayer hall, and in this prayer hall they have accommodated all the religions. You can find a small little mosque in a corner. You can find, you know, a small little church somewhere. And in that big prayer hall, they have got all the religions catered for. Why did they have to do it? It was not the job of an airport or, even the government of UK. They may not have adopted it. They may not have changed their norms due to the stakeholders or the passengers, but they did because they knew they have to live in that environment and people demand that. Therefore, this is a very good example of evolving culture. So things are as accommodated as the stakeholders like. Your common experiences, which ultimately contribute to the culture, include but are not limited to. That means these are not the only items to be included in the culture and style. There could be more than these, but the primary items are, first of all, the shared vision, mission, values, beliefs, and expectations. If you are a team, all team members should have a shared vision. It should not be the vision of the boss. Nobody in a team or in an organization is a visionary. I am personally very much against this concept that the boss is a visionary. And boss is always a visionary. Whomsoever is the boss, he is a visionary. That is not correct at all. The vision has to be shared. It has to evolve. And the people of the organization, they have got as much participation in the formation of the vision as the boss himself. But the person sitting on top, is only custodian of that idea. He has to put it in writing or put it in words, and all of the organization would agree with that. That means they agree that whatever they thought the vision of the organization should be is consistent with these words. So this is my justification that vision is not created from top. This is created from bottom up. But naturally, the words are given from top, and naturally this is propagated and shared from top. And based on that vision, you create your mission, you establish your values, belief system, and the expectations. All this is the part of your overall organizational culture. And we are talking about the organizational culture. I am not talking about culture of a community. I'm talking about the organization, a kind of a corporate culture. So corporate culture has its ties with the shared vision. Similarly, if we have these things established, then we establish regulations, policies, methods, and procedures within that cultural norm in accordance with those vision, mission, values, beliefs, and expectations. And then we should have a motivation and reward system. Anyone who is following the vision, who is contributing towards the organization, people should be first motivated to do it, and those who do well must be rewarded. That is how to encourage and to enhance and improve the cultural values. You should also understand how much can we tolerate, how much variation from our expectation on the positive or the negative side is acceptable. This is your risk tolerance. Beyond that, you would not accommodate. View of leadership, hierarchy, and authority relationships. That means how do you view your leadership? Is the leadership accessible? What kind of hierarchical structure is it? What kind of hierarchy does exist in the organization? Is the CEO accessible to all? What is your local culture? In some organizations, CEO is completely inaccessible to the workers. On other organizations, there is a completely open door policy. And then what are the relationships between various people at various tiers in the organization? Is it a autocratic kind of a relationship, or it is a friendly kind of a relationship? So based on these, you establish a code of conduct, work ethics, work hours, and all these things. This also forms part of your culture, and you establish your operating environment based on that. You can take the example of today's organization where there is no concept of separate offices. They all sit in a huge hall. Previously, there used to be cabins. Nowadays, the latest mechanism which they have adopted is they all sit in a huge hall. Even the CEO is sitting in the same hall. I have seen such an organization in which everybody from clerk to the boss to the CEO, everybody is sitting in the same hall. And the interesting part is that nobody has reserved space. All the sitting space is similar, and anyone can sit anywhere. If CEO comes late, he might get a corner seat. And if the next person coming is a clerk, then he would be sitting right next to the CEO. Now, first of all, this is promoting equality. This is removing barriers. The hierarchy relationship is well established. Anybody can approach CEO and talk to him. Naturally, if somebody wants to have a meeting or a conference or things like that, they have got a separate room for that and they can go and sit in isolation for that purpose. But otherwise, their working environment is like that. This is one way of doing things. Another culture would be that, your boss has got a separate office. Everybody has got a separate office and there are walls in between. These are the barriers. And I have seen in government offices, the bureaucracy is such that the biggest boss will have the biggest office. And the interesting part is he would require a huge table and a very long room. Long room means what? The entrance door would be on the far end of the room and he would be sitting on the other end facing the entrance. Now, why do they do that? You have any ideas? Yes, please. Have you understood the scenario I have given you? The big boss is sitting in a large room, elongated room, with a rectangular room, and the length of the room is such that he is sitting at one corner of the room facing the door and door is on the other end. Why does he like this kind of setup? And
Not really sure, sir. I don't know.
okay, let's assume I am your boss and you enter in the room into the room. You have to walk all the way to my table. So whatever sentiments or whatever task you thought you would be discussing with me, I am trying to suppress you. I am observing you, I am looking at you, and you are walking all the way towards me. And by the time you reach me, you are already influenced by my authority. And then some bosses, what they do is they don't keep chairs for subordinates. So this is a suppressive culture. This is another kind of culture which is very dominant in bureaucratic circles, and people enjoy that because they like to behave like kings. In the times of the kings, they used to have these kind of darbars. So, what do we need? What kind of culture do we need in our organizations? You might come across both kinds of organizations, and you must understand where you are going and how these things can be done. Naturally, in today's organization, a lot many things have changed, and people are coming towards the other extreme, which I defined, although not exactly, but at least people have got cabins, in a big hall and things like that. Maybe CEO has got a separate office, but then it is not that huge an office. Maybe this small little office which CEO is having might have glass walls through which he can be seen and he can see others and things like that. But every organization has got a different way of looking at it. The organization culture we just discussed is actually known as or is a part of enterprise environmental factors, which we will be discussing a bit later. But what is enterprise environmental factor? These are the factors which are either internal or external from the organization, but they do have some impact on the project. These are called enterprise environmental factors. So they are organizational or extra organizational, but these are factors. Trust me, these are weather is a factor. So maybe it is too cold and we can't work in cold. Maybe on your project you can't work in cold. Maybe your organization organizational culture is such that limits you from doing something that is enterprise environmental factor. So there are a lot many things. Some of those things are internal to the organization and some are external to the organization. Organizational culture is one of the internal factors in enterprise environmental factors. So we'll talk more about what are other enterprise environmental factors, but for now we do understand that organizational culture is part of enterprise environmental factors. Now culture and style, whatever organization you join, you study their culture, you understand their culture and style, and then you adopt it. That means culture and styles are learnable and they are shareable. You will learn them and people who are already exercising them will share their practices with you and then you will adopt. They may have a strong influence on the project's ability to meeting its objectives. As we have already said, they may constrain or facilitate. It can work both ways. A certain environment, a certain culture may be very facilitative of a project. Another environment may not be. So that does have a strong influence on the project's ability to meet its objectives. Project manager should understand the different organizational styles and cultures that may affect the project. So he should have a wider knowledge of what all can be done. Maybe this is a very restrictive organization and he thinks that if this project needs to be done, then another kind of organizational style should be used and he may suggest it to the organization head as if they can, if they like, they can experiment on it and maybe the project objectives are met better. In some cases, the person shown on top of an organization chart may be just a figurehead, which I explained earlier, that maybe the person who is a CEO or whomsoever is responsible for your job, this person is not the one making the decisions. So you must understand and you must know who makes the decisions, who holds all the cards. So you better approach that person rather than a figurehead. Project manager must know individuals in the organization who is the decision maker and work with them to influence the project success. We all are working towards the project success. So if he is banging on the wrong door all the time, we are not really contributing to the project success. He should know which door to knock. So this comes after you have good understanding of the culture and style of the organization. Now, in light of globalization, you see, multicultural environment is a norm. We are working with people from different countries, different localities. They are not even present when you are working. They are virtually working with you. So how do you deal with that? You must understand the impact of cultural influences is critical in projects involving diverse organizations and locations around the world. You are a software house, two people are working from Spain, two people are working from USA, two from India, two from Pakistan. So they have all got different timing, different cultural values, different behaviors. So how do you get the work done? You must consult those people who are actually living in that kind of environment. It is really extremely difficult to accommodate to other environment. That is one of the reasons people are more comfortable working in their own country with their own people. But when you have to work with multicultural environment, then probably you have to be very accommodative. You have to be very flexible. If you have to, plan a meeting, then you have to ensure that that meeting time is suitable for everyone else because they might be from different corners of the world and it might be their rest time. It might be midnight. So we don't want that to happen. So we will choose the most suitable time. We will address them in the most pleasing and most best manner, as if they don't feel offended. When you're working in the multicultural environment, then it is an issue. There is a question which normally we ask, that there is an American and he is presenting to Chinese in a meeting, and he is cutting jokes, and Chinese are not, giving any impression, no expressions from Chinese, and they are not really liking it. So what should he do? Should he stop cutting the jokes? Should he cut more jokes as if they are he can make them smile or something? So what should he do? Yes, please. I think Rijo has left today. He is no more with us. Right. So in a multicultural environment, we must understand what are the requirements of the other people. How do they behave? The Chinese are very reserved people. They do not like cutting jokes, especially in formal environment. So this American, when he decided to come to this meeting, he should have learned their culture, and he should have behaved accordingly right from the beginning. So you just can't impose your culture on others. You have to see uh, what are the requirements of other people. Culture becomes a critical factor in defining project success, and multicultural competence becomes critical for the project manager. If nobody else, at least the project manager must have a wide knowledge and wide understanding of multicultural competence. I think you people, all of you are working there, and you might have come across lot many people from different nationalities, and you are the best judge how to behave with those people, and how to talk, how to initiate your discussion and everything. You want to add anything?
Yes, sir. That's true. It all depends what kind of situation is it. Like, for example, if we have colleagues from all over, like 4 or 5 nationalities. Once you get used to each other, you befriend. Then, I mean, obviously, for example, as you said about the jokes, I mean, you can joke around, and you can do stuff people won't mind. In fact, they would like it. You need to be friendly, but it shouldn't be offensive to anyone. As you know, that especially here, we are living with we have Indians as well, a lot. So we have to respect each other,
Yeah,
rather to have some, bad experiences or consequences.
exactly. I'll give you an example. It was back in, I think it was 2005. I went for a training um, in USA. This was a training of course of masters in project management, and PMI selected me for that, and I was one of the 25 lucky people who were selected. And the 25 people which were selected for this masters class were from diverse cultures and from diverse countries. Almost from every major country, there were one or two people, and we were 25 people sitting there. Somebody was Japanese, Chinese, and Indian, and Pakistani, and British, and Canadian. Every nationality was there. So this was my first experience working with these kind of people. When the training started, the American would behave in a different way. The Japanese had a different way of looking at the things. And everybody was very reserved on the very first day of the training. And so was I. I saw the American students, they were, cutting jokes, and they were very happy about it, and they were very frank about things. And, they're standing on the table and jumping down, this and that, just like kids. And this is not what happens in our country or in our culture. This is not a normal habit. So I did go to, at the end of the training, the first session, I did go to the trainer and I said, I'm feeling very uncomfortable. He said, why? I said, I have a few reasons. Number one, I don't know how to address these people. If I say something, it might offend them. So how should I, if they are all from the same nationality, I could have adopted, but they are all are from different nationalities. I don't really know what they like and what they don't like. Number one. Number two, I am not humorous by nature. I can't cut jokes. I can't, it looks not normal to me to be a joker in the class. And everybody here probably expects that. So how do I do that? So essentially, I told him that I do not have a sense of humor. He said, okay, first of all, he said about your sense of humor. Everybody does have a sense of humor and so do you. Some people, come out with it, some don't. But then he quoted me, when I asked you that question, you answered this and this was quite humorous. And if you remember, people did laugh at it as well. I said, I didn't mean it. He said, okay, the more you sit with them, the more you will adopt. Secondly, you are not comfortable sitting with these people. Trust me, none of these people is comfortable. But over time, they all will become friends and you will become such deep friends that there will be nothing, which you can't do with each other. So this was the lesson which I got from him. And trust me, after 3 days of sitting together, we were so deep friends that we were cutting jokes and we were, I was kind of adopting their way, their culture, and in certain things, they were adopting my practices and, everybody was mixing up. So when you live in a multicultural environment, these things become very easy for you. But for a person who has gone into this environment for the very first time, this becomes a challenge. But ultimately, naturally, it is human by nature. You will, come over the culture shock. I did experience the culture shock as well. First time I went to America, when I landed and I saw the environment around me, that was completely, this is the very first time I went out abroad. This was completely, shocking to me, really shocking to me. How can someone wear such bright colors or this kind of clothes, or how could people behave so frankly with everybody, things like that, which is not a norm in our culture. So this is kind of a global culture we learn to get into when we interact with them. So you are very right that yes, you can ultimately get very frank with them and you can cut jokes and everything because they also adopt to you and you also adopt to them. So there is a middle way where everything becomes fine. Right?
Exactly, sir. Like basic thing is like to respect other person and people as humans, obviously. So once you get used to each other, everything gets okay.
Exactly, exactly. That is the point. Next thing is in the organizational influences is the organizational communication. You might be a very good project manager. You might have a very nice team. You might have a very, a wonderful plan. But if everything is on paper, if everything is in my mind, if we have got very good skills, but we are not communicative, the communication style does not match. The organization does not have that kind of communication lines established. So this would become an impossible task to achieve the project's objectives. Project management success in an organization is highly dependent on an effective organizational communication style. But you see, we are dependent on the organizational communication. If the organization has inherited us a communication style which is not good, then probably this is going to constrain my project management performance. And especially when we are dealing with globalization in project management, the challenge is tough. The language is a big challenge. The communication style is again another challenge. So communication has to be, matching to all the, multicultural styles, and you should be able to standardize certain things, the communication channels, and everything should be very well defined. Even if your organizational culture does not have that communication mechanism, for the good of your project, you will add certain habits or certain things into your project which will facilitate better communication within your project. That may be in addition to the culture inherited to you. For the betterment of the project, you will evolve those communication mechanisms. Organization communication capabilities have again great influence on how the project is conducted. If you don't communicate, you don't talk, you don't have the right way of communicating. Maybe, I am in habit of sending emails and you are in habit of receiving letters. So how my email will get converted into a letter, you will print it out, then somebody will put it in front of you. You will reply in form of a letter and somebody will write an email to me, and then that probably will match. But why can't somebody out of us could change the communication style? So maybe I can come back to documents or that person can come to emails. As a consequence, project manager in distant locations are able to more effectively communicate with all relevant stakeholders within the organization structure to facilitate decision making. So if we have got these communication capabilities, if we are aware about these influences, then project manager should have to design the effective communication mechanism with all the stakeholders, and it will facilitate the better decision making. Otherwise, there will be confusion, and I am communicating something else and you are understanding something else. That should not happen. Clarity of communication is must. The concise and crisp message which is clear. Stakeholders and project team members can also use electronic communications to communicate with the project manager formally or informally. So this has to be defined, what is formal and what is informal in communication, and whatever is allowed, those mechanisms could be used. And we can go even down to the level that we can use even social media for the betterment of our project. We can use video conferencing, web audio conferencing, all those tools which are nowadays available, as we are using this facility of GoToMeeting, GoToTraining. You could have used anything. So these communication mechanisms should be used, but one thing I must make clear, there is no match to face-to-face interaction. Even if you are forced to communicate on this media with your virtual team, but that will always leave some distance between the team members. I was once working with PMI, and we were working on a PMI standard, and again we had a very diverse kind of team. People from different parts of the world were there in this team, and we had never seen each other. But we used to meet every week in a teleconference. We used to discuss everything, and we did have some idea of the personality of the other person, but we had not seen each other. Maybe one odd time, maybe I have seen a picture of that person on LinkedIn or somewhere, but we personally did not know each other. So in such a circumstance where every week we are talking and we don't know each other, PMI came to our rescue. They made it a habit that all these people meet each other physically at least 4 times a year. They are meeting on teleconferences every week, but they provided us an opportunity where we can see each other, we can shake hands with each other, and we should know each other. Once we met for the first time, that developed a completely different kind of bond. The person who was very forceful in his speech in the teleconference, when I saw him, he was from Peru and he was kind of a small little guy, black guy, and he was not very, uh, kind of very different from what I had imagined. So once I knew him, once I talked to him, once he introduced his, circumstances and his uh, even family members to me, I was better able to understand that guy, and in future meetings, I was accordingly treating him with more respect and with more honor. So teleconferences is not the solution. Yes, there should be virtual communication, but at the same time, you must always provide an opportunity for your employees who are communicating virtually to meet each other in some way. Maybe you can send some of your people from India to USA for few days as if they can meet. This would be a trip also, and they will be able to see the people they are working with. Maybe sometimes the people from the other side could come here and things like that. Or you can arrange a meeting where physical presence of all these people might be necessary. So this is about communication. Just a moment. I think the slide is stuck. You can't see the next slide. Let me fix that. Okay. Right. Coming over to the various organizational structures. Right in front of you, there is a matrix, there is a chart table in front of you, which shows various types of organizational structures. We did discuss the functional structure, matrix structure, and the projectized structure. Now let us see what they are. The functional structure is the traditional hierarchical, deep hierarchical structure in which there is a lot of bureaucracy, there is a boss, and then he has got second layer of senior people, and every person who is heading a department has his department. That department might be further broken down into smaller parts. So there is a chain of command in this, and this chain of command can never be broken. The formal official communication always go through this chain of command. The people from one department cannot directly communicate with the other department until and unless the communication goes through the proper channel. So this is a functional mechanism, and in a functional structure, this might be very good. I'm not saying that this is highly bureaucratic and this is not good. Even bureaucracy is good. But why this functional structure is good is because there is a system of check and balance. If a subordinate does something, it has to go through his boss. It has to be checked there, and only then it passes to the next level and to the next level and ultimately down another chain. And this way there is no chance of mistake. But at the same time, I would say that in a functional organization, the hierarchy is so deep that it might hinder the progress. It might slow down the job. And moreover, the people sitting in between, they might delay the things unnecessarily because you have given them certain kind of authority. The person sitting on top of me has got the authority to approve my work. And if he uses this power for not for the betterment of the organization and for his own convenience. And he would say, okay, I'll approve it tomorrow. Although he's supposed to look at the document and approve it today, but he is procrastinating, and ultimately my job is held up till him. And so if every level exercises his own power and they delay the communication, then ultimately the project will be delayed. I'm not really dealing with the project right now. The process will get delayed, and there will be a lot of bureaucracy. The use of bureaucracy is a better check and balance system, but excessive use of bureaucracy or immoral use of bureaucracy where the power is being misused is what is bad. Bureaucracy is not bad. The misuse of power in bureaucracy is bad. Similarly, the functional organization is kind of a bureaucratic structure. If it can be effectively used, then it is very good for operational purposes. Again, I am not saying for the project purposes, for the operational purposes. Why? Because every department has their own head. Every department has got the same, like it is a finance department. All the people in finance department are having the same type of education, the same skill, and they know each other, and they have been serving under this department for quite some time. They have got loyalties with this department. They have communication, open communication amongst themselves, so they are comfortable with each other, and they are in habit of dealing with this chain of command. So they can effectively work in this structure. But if I have to run a project in this kind of an organization, and project is not going to be composed of all the finance people, I might have to bring in an IT specialist, maybe a hardware person, maybe two persons from finance, two from audit, and maybe some other department. So all these people would actually be working on the project to achieve the objectives of the project. And because these people are coming from different functional departments, so first of all, they will not have any coherence. Their functional department heads would not like to spare them, because for them, their job is more important than the project. So in a functional organization, if a project is to be run, the people are not usually spared for the project, and project is given the last priority. And ultimately, the sufferer is always the project manager. But I'm not saying the project cannot be run in a functional organization, but this is the most docile environment for running a project. Here, the authority of the project manager is almost none. Resource availability is almost none. And the budget of the project is not controlled by the project manager. It is some functional manager who is sitting on top of that. Project manager is not formally a role in a functional organization. He is just he is doing something else, but he is also being assigned as a project manager, and he is doing this job part-time. And similarly, even the project management administration, the people working for project are also part-time. On the other hand, if I look at the other extreme, which is the projectized organizational structure, in this, all the power is with the project manager. There are no functions. CEO and the project managers. Project managers are directly answerable to the CEO. CEO is assigning them the projects, and they are independently looking at their projects, and they have got dedicated staff and dedicated funding. What else a project manager may ask for? He has got kind of unlimited funding and unlimited resources. He has no problem whatsoever. So the authority of the project manager in this case is the highest. Resource availability, again the highest. And he is the one who is controlling the budget. And he is full-time available, and his staff is full-time available. So this is the ideal environment for running a project. But I am not saying that this should be adopted, because in this structure, we don't have any functions. Who is going to look after the administration of all these project managers. There is no functional department. Who is going to have their salaries delivered? Where is the finance department? There is no finance department. There is no HR department. There is no functions. So if project managers are responsible for their projects, then probably all the administrative work of the project would fall into their domain, and ultimately they would be doing more than what the project requires. They would be doing the administrative work, hiring people, giving them salaries, managing the finance and all that regarding their specific project. So this is a self-sustaining project, self-accounting project, and they are actually doing functions within the project. So this might not be a very, doable thing. Like functional organization is not good for project management, so projectized organization is not good for functions at all. In between, there is a matrix structure. The matrix structure is such in which you have uh, such an arrangement where a person is answerable to more than one bosses. Looks very bad. Probably this should not be done. But if you look at it closely, if the one boss is functional manager and one boss is the project manager, the person once working for the project work would be answerable to the project manager and taking orders from the project manager. And once he is working on the functional work, then he is answerable to the functional manager. So this way, we are not only uh, getting both the jobs done, but at the same time, we are trying to strike a balance between the two. But if the functional manager is more powerful in this matrix, who will be suffering? Project manager will be suffering and the project will be suffering. So such an organization which is a matrix structure, but functional manager exercises more powers than the project manager, that would be called a weak matrix. This would be very much like a functional organization, but there are limited, authority to the project manager, limited resource availability, and again the functional manager, because he is more powerful, he would be controlling the budget, and project manager and project staff would be part-time, like in functional organization. So this is not much different. The only thing is that in a weak matrix, at least the project manager knows who he will be getting and what that person would be doing. That is another story, that when that person has to come to him, he is not allowed to come to him. But at least he knows his people. A strong matrix is the opposite of that. Here project manager has more authority than the functional manager. So that means the top management has realized that projects are more important here, and if there is a priority given, it is always given to the project. So that means the people who are working on functional as well as project work, they may have to sacrifice functional work in favor of project. So this is something more closer to the projectized structure, but not exactly a projectized structure. Here, project manager has more authority than the functional manager. Availability resources is more assured. Here, the person in control is the project manager, and his role is full-time, and his staff is also almost full-time. Now, both of these weak matrix and the strong matrix, they are inclining towards the one side or the other. There is a balance structure in which we try to strike a balance in such a way that both functional and project needs can be fulfilled judiciously. In this, the project manager shares his authority with the functional manager, therefore it is low to moderate. And the resource availability is also on compromise, low to moderate. Here, both of them jointly control the budget. Project manager is full-time, but the project management staff is coming from various departments, that is part-time. I hope I did explain this. I'll explain it further in another way also. So far, is it okay?
Yes, sir. Sir, one question.
Yeah.
Nowadays, most of the organizations are, how do we define? Because they have a separate operational and functional structure, and they have a separate project structure along with the supporting staff. So where do we put them?
Okay. Actually, all these structures we were studying, functional and projectized and matrix, these are just for your education. Actually, none of these structures would be found in real life exactly like that. There is always a combination. Some kind of a hybrid exists in the organization. But until and unless you understand the classic functional, the classic projectized, the classic matrix, you won't be able to see the images of these into your organization. Your organization is actually a hybrid of all of these. Some part of the organization may be highly projectized, maybe the top is functional, maybe the branches of the organization are sometimes working in a matrix. So you will find a hybrid working. That is called a composite structure. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, now look at the diagram coming in front of you right now. This is a classical functional organization in which the top level boss, the chief executive, is sitting on top and he has got his functional managers under him. This is classically for a functional organization where the operational work of the organization is to be done. So the functional managers have their own dedicated staff. Finance manager, HR manager, and this manager and that manager. So all of them, they have their own staff and they are working in alignment with the organizational objectives. There's nothing to talk about projects here. So this is classically an operational organization. And they are working fine. Their SOPs, their mechanism, their way of working, they are fulfilling the organizational needs and requirements. What if in this organization we have to do a project? Naturally, this is a classical operational organization and we assume that this organization is not much aware about projects, but for the first time, if this organization tries to bring a change in its operations, they have to do a project. And to do a project, although they don't give much importance to the project, that is an auxiliary activity they are supposed to be doing. So they would nominate somebody and ask him to do that job without assigning him any resources, any human resources or physical resources. He just has been given a job. Now, naturally, this person would require resources, and now he is left to coordinate himself with all the functional managers because organizational resources are distributed in the functional managers. If he has got to do certain people from one department, he would be requesting them from the functional manager. If he needs some stores or some tools, he might be talking to another functional manager. So it is left upon the coordination of the project manager, and he is also not directly in control, directly connected with the chief executive. He has just been communicated that he has to do this project and he has to run from pillar to post from one functional manager to another, and every functional manager and his team is busy doing their functional responsibilities. And they don't care what this project coordinator is running after. So if at all somebody gives him some staff, gives him some resources, and he can start doing something, that is a blessing. Otherwise, they do not have this project on priority. Even chief executive doesn't look at this project as a priority. So in such an organization, what will occur? First of all, this project coordination role is not a project manager himself. This is just a person, maybe he is himself a functional manager or somewhere else, someone else in the organization, and he has just been asked to do this project coordination. So in addition to his current responsibilities, he is doing this project coordination, and this is a thankless job where nobody is supporting him. If at all he succeeds in completing the project, which is a very big achievement, then we are not even encouraging him for his good job done, because everybody thinks it's a kind of an auxiliary job. If he does what's great about it? Nobody realizes how difficult was it to do this job. Everybody is focused on the functions, and they are taking progress of the functional managers, and project manager is not really of interest to anybody. So this is a classical functional organization, and naturally such classical organizations are hard to find, but something similar to this, some attitudes similar to this, you would find in certain organizations. Even if your organization is projectized, there are certain corners of your organization, certain portion of your organization which are functional in nature. So this is what a functional organization may look like. Then let's look at the weak matrix. Weak matrix is exactly the same as the functional organization. The only thing is, previously in a functional organization, the project coordinator had to run from one functional manager to another. Here, project manager or the project coordinator, whatever you want to call him, has been given at least this much importance, that his project has been recognized and he has been told that he would be getting such and such staff from such and such functional manager. So he has been earmarked some staff and he can plan according to them. But still, priority goes to the functional manager. The budget of the project is controlled by the functional manager, maybe one of the functional managers, like the leftmost one. So project manager has to be requesting the staff members to come and join the project, but they are not being spared by the functional managers. So project manager is now coordinating among the staff members, and still his project is not on priority and probably will not be done. But if you look at it closely, this situation is slightly better than the functional organization, where he had to coordinate with the functional manager. Here he knows his staff. Here he can communicate with them directly in a matrix. But the availability of staff is not assured. But in this structure, the job might get done. Then we have got the balanced matrix structure. Now this is interesting, because in a balanced matrix structure, what happens is that we are not actually putting the project manager and the functional manager at the same level. We are not doing that. What we are doing is, we are formally recognizing the authority of the project manager. Although he doesn't have a separate structure to run, but he has been put under one of the functional managers. Previous two cases, project coordinator or project manager was not under anyone. He was independent, but still he was not being given the resources. Now, when he is put under a under a functional manager formally, then he becomes a part of his team, and the functional manager automatically becomes the project sponsor and answerable to CEO for this project. Therefore, although the staff which is going to work on this project would be coming from other departments, but if project manager faces some difficulty in getting that staff, the only one shoulder he can cry on is his functional manager. And that functional manager is at peer level with the other functional managers, and therefore he will put the peer pressure on other functional managers and will ensure that this project gets done. We did not put the project manager and the functional manager at the same level, still we achieved the balance. So this way, the functions will also be smoothly done, the projects will also be smoothly done. So this is a very good mechanism, a very good way of doing the things. What did the CEO do? He simply placed the project manager under a functional manager, and now using the authority of the functional manager, project manager can get the job done. This, this structure is called a balanced matrix structure. I am not saying that this is the only translation of a balanced matrix. You could create another structure and justify the balanced matrix. But this is one of a very good examples where the structure is still functional. It still looks like the same structure, but project manager still is able to get the job done. Then we have the strong matrix. Here, let's take the lesson from the previous one, the balanced matrix. When we put our project manager under a functional manager, the job got done. So CEO is impressed. So what he has decided now is to put all the project managers under one functional manager and let the functional manager coordinate the staff for the project managers and ensure that all the required staff and resources are made available to all project managers when needed. You see, we are evolving from the balanced matrix into a strong matrix, and the functional manager who is heading all the project managers may be called manager of project managers, or in some cases you may call it a PMO, project management office, because project management office is also responsible for making the resources available for the project managers. It facilitates. So this could be a PMO, but that does not mean PMO cannot exist in a weak matrix or a functional organization or in a balanced matrix. PMO can exist anywhere, but this specific, layout is such that it looks like a PMO. So this is a strong matrix. What happens here? Project managers have got pretty much good authority over their staff. They are more powerful than the functional managers because chief executive is personally interested in the project management. We are talking about a bit mature organization. The previous organization was getting mature. That was on the maturity level, that was doing something good. But this is doing fantastic. This is actually the best achievable mechanism you can get is a strong matrix. You must try to develop a strong matrix. You can always easily develop a balanced structure in your organization, but strong matrix could be good, could be the best achievable organization structure. Projectized structure, though, is classically suitable to the project manager, but projectized organizational structure might not be suitable for many situations where because there are no functions in it. Without any functionality, any functional managers involved, there are not many facilities project managers will not enjoy, and they will have to do those jobs by themselves. But in a classical sense, in an ideal sense, this is the best structure from the project management point of view, because all the project managers are directly answerable to the chief executive. They have got their dedicated staff and they have got their own funding. So from the project manager's point of view, this is classical, but it has got certain disadvantages as well. Because if you are in a projectized organization and you are doing a project as a project manager, projects do finish, but you have created a permanent structure for yourself. You have developed loyalties. If this project is about to finish, project manager knows that his job will be lost and all his staff's job will be lost. So he will try not to finish the project, elongate the project, just to save his and his staff's job. So priority is not on the objective of the project sometimes. It is more on the betterment of the human resource. Some people can say human resource is important. Yes, it is important, but it is not important than the project objective. Therefore, projectized organization may have certain flaws. So these were the traditional structures. Now, as I said before, actually none of these traditional structures may exist exactly in the way it is shown in the previous slides. You will have some kind of a hybrid or a composite structure in which some part of the organization may be functional, some part may be projectized, maybe there is a glimpse of a weak matrix somewhere, maybe there is a glimpse of a strong matrix somewhere. So in an organization, all these things are mutually inclusive. So this example only shows some possibilities, although this is not the ideal composite organization structure. This just shows that there might be a project being run under the first functional manager by his own staff, and the project coordination is being done by themselves. And there might be a manager of project managers dealing with the organizational projects, and all the project managers are working under him. So you can see under first functional manager, the leftmost one, the lowest staff member is working for that functional manager, number one. Number two, it is also working for the internal project of that functional manager. It is also working for the lowest project manager. So this way you can see that project in composite structure, all of the different organizational structures may be depicted. So practically speaking, you will not find a classically functional organization, a classically matrix organization, a classically projectized organization. But yes, you can say that my organization is predominantly strong matrix, or it is predominantly functional. So that kind of environment would exist. And again, I would give the example of National Highway Authority, where it was a functional structure, but within that functional structure, there was one department, and you will be amazed to find that that was the finance department. That was projectized in itself. Within the finance department, they had created the person heading the finance department was so much interested in project, and he was automating everything, all the financial dealings, that he did set up a number of projects under him, and whole of that department was running in a projectized manner, only that department. There were other projects being run in the organization on weak metrics basis. There was no PMO or a manager of project manager kind of a thing existing there. So there could be any such combination existing in the organization you are serving. Right, Ji? Any questions so far?
No, sir, it's all clear.
Okay, wonderful. So many organization structures include strategic, middle management and operational management. Now this is apart from what we have studied. But you see, the top level of the organization, the top tier of the organization is normally strategic. Then there could be a second layer which is middle management, and then the operational layer, the people who are actually working on it, this might be the operational level. So these were just examples I just have shown you. Maybe the CEO, the chief executive, may have some of his own staff working on the strategy, and these departmental heads are the middle management, and the lower staff is the operational management. Maybe the top level departmental heads and the chief executive are the strategic management, and the next level is middle management, and the next level is operational. So when you develop your organizational structure or chart, you specify what levels are described where. Project manager may interact with all three levels depending on the factors such as the strategic importance of the project. If the project is strategically more important, you might be dealing with a strategic layer. Capacity of the stakeholder to exert influence on the project. If the stakeholders are very strong, influential, no matter if the project is of strategic nature or not, but if stakeholder is strong, then probably it has to be addressed at a higher level. Degree of project management maturity. If your organization is very well mature in project management, then naturally every level would be knowing what they are supposed to be doing. And therefore, that specific mechanism will emerge. If you have got a project management system, you will abide by that. Organizational communications, whatever they are defined, they will also align this communication, the project manager's interaction with the operations. Interaction determines project characteristics such as how much authority the project manager will have, resources will be made available and how they will be managed, entity controlling the project budget, who will be controlling the project budget. We have discussed it for different organization structures already, who actually controls the project budget in your case. So no matter what organization structure you are in, these are the few questions you have to ask yourself. As a project manager, what is my level of authority? How the resources being made available to me? Who is controlling the budget? What is my role as a project manager, and what is the team composition? These are the few questions every project manager should be asking. And trust me, these things differ from organization to organization. In many organizations, project manager is not considered a project manager at all. He may be called a project manager, but basically he is not even allowed to plan. He is just supposed to be executing. If you are just responsible for the execution of the project, then you are not a project manager at all. You are a supervisor. So what is the role of the project manager in your organization? Are you really performing all those duties which will be studying ultimately? Are you, taking on all those responsibilities, or you are just involved in the execution of the project? If you are not involved in planning, then you are probably not the project manager. Somebody else is pulling the strings then. Okay, next topic is the organizational process assets. Now, let me explain what these organizational process assets are. You see, apart from the organizational governance and all those things, process assets are documents, procedures, policies, rules, regulations, even the standards, formats, methods, methodologies, models, from wherever, from within the organization or outside of the organization, it may belong to a larger knowledge base. So if you can adopt something from PMBOK, you adopt that. These are also process assets. Your old projects files are also project assets. Everything and anything you can get for support of your project, which can help you in project management, could be an organizational process assets. They include any artifact, practice or knowledge from any or all of the organizations involved in the project that can be used to perform or govern the project. Remember, process assets does not put a mandatory condition that you can only use these assets or you will use these assets. But when these assets are available, we can have a governance structure which would allow us to use a specific set out of these assets. So organizational process assets is kind of a library. But which books are allowed to be read is what the governance tells you to do. What the project management and what is the procedure to do it is given in the project management system. So they might include process assets, might include plans, policies, procedures, guidelines, which are either formal or informal, whatever formats. You see, if there is a suggestion, if you have to prepare a project management plan, what will you do? If you don't have any assets, you don't have any resources, how will you create a project management plan? Maybe you will go on internet and search for that, and maybe you get a template and you can adopt that template. You can amend that template and suit it according to your requirements. So this also becomes a process asset. So this is not mandatory. There is no specific template which has been advised to you to be used. Therefore, you have hunted down our template and you have used it according to your own will and wish. What if organization has mandated that this is the template every project manager has to use? This is the project management system which is telling you to do that, if that exists. And why it is putting these rules down, why it is providing you templates and all these things? Because there is an organizational governance structure which tells us there must be a template. So they also include the organizational knowledge base. And what is the organization's knowledge base? That is the knowledge created by the organization in past. Maybe we have done certain number of projects and the project files, the old lessons learned, the historical information which is available in files is also made available for future projects to consult. This may include the completed documents which were created in older projects, like the schedules, the risk data, earned value data, or whatever kind of data, those files are available with us, they can also be consulted. But again, I am saying organizational process assets can be consulted, but it is not mandatory that all are some of these assets must be used, but they are helpful. The thing where I say something has to be done, it must be in the project management system. It must be under some governance structure. So when we talk about the project governance, then this will be more clear. So organizational process assets are normally available, these sources are normally available for doing as an input for doing any project processes, especially the planning processes, because planning is done in the beginning. And when we are planning for the project or initiating the project, at that time we do not have a lot of material, and all the material we are consulting is coming from organizational process assets. So we may use any of the organizational process assets as input during our initiation and planning processes. Updating and adding to organizational process assets as necessary throughout the project. While we do our project, we will learn new things. New data will become available. New lessons will become available. And those will be fed to the organizational process assets for future projects. And this is generally the responsibility of the project team members. As I said, it is never the responsibility of the project manager. It is the team which is responsible, project manager included. Now, organizational process assets could be categorized into two separate groups. One are the processes and procedures. What are the processes and procedures? These could be laws, regulations, processes, procedures, templates, standards, all those things which cannot be changed. Means, like, there is a book of rules. You can't change the rules. but you can adopt them. So if you go to a library, there are certain books which are available to be issued to the members, and there are certain books which are called reference section. They are only to be referred in the library. So you can say these are read-only items. You just can consult them, but you can't take them or you can't change them. So processes and procedures include all those things. And the data which you can change or you can take home and update it, this is called the corporate knowledge base, and that would include the lessons learned, the old files, the historical data, risk registers and all kinds of registers and logs created from previous projects. So this is called the corporate knowledge base. Naturally, if you have got a format in processes and procedures, that format might have been used by previous projects, and filled format will be available in corporate knowledge base. Like project management plan format, the blank format is advised in processes and procedures. So blank format is available there. But if I want to consult how the project plan format was filled for a previous project, I will consult the corporate knowledge base. So just few examples. For processes and procedures, during initiation and planning, there could be guidelines and criteria pertaining to the organization set of standards and processes. There could be organizational standards like HR policy, ethics policy, HR procurement policy, and whatever kind of. Everything which is written here is not all. There could be any number of policies. Then there could be standard project and product life cycles. I will talk about project and product life cycles later, but if organization has got some established project life cycles and product life cycles, they will be used. Then quality policies and procedures, and there could be a lot many things in there, process audits, improved targets, checklists and all that. That could be helpful during initiation planning. Then we can have the templates of different documents. In execution monitoring and control, we can have the change control procedures. We can have the financial control procedures. We can have the issue and defect management procedures, like how to control the issues and defects, how to identify them, procedures, how to do something. So this all could be for execution monitoring and control. Organizational communication requirements, procedures for prioritizing, approving and issuing the work authorizations, risk control procedures. So these are all the standards. These are all the guidelines which are provided by the organization or from other sources. But again, I am saying they are not mandatory. Similarly, in closing, how to close a project, how to register the lessons learned, where to register them, how to do the final project audits, project evaluation, and so on and so forth. So all these things are called processes and procedures, and they are part of organizational process assets. The other part is corporate knowledge base. These are the actual record of the previous projects. So all those documents we just talked about, now we may consult field documents of previous projects, the same documents. The organizational knowledge base for storing and retrieving the information includes configuration management knowledge base, versions and baselines of all performing organization standards, policies, procedures. So if you want to consult a procedure or a law, you could have a history of all the laws. You can say this is the procedure or law of 1878 and this is of 1940 and this is of 2000. So all these previous versions might be available. Financial databases, information about labor rates and all that, how much money has been spent in the previous projects, what was the budget. Historical information and lessons learned databases, previous databases which were used for the project. Issue and defect management databases that can be very helpful. I can identify my issues and defects looking at the old documents. process measurement databases, project files, all the documents which were created during the conduct of the project, all those baselines and documents could be used for our current project. Now these were the process assets. Now what are the enterprise environmental factors? We have already talked a bit about that. We said these are all the external and internal factors which can impact the project. Now when I say factors, that means factors, not documents. Enterprise environmental factors are not documents. There may be weather conditions which are affecting our project. There may be political pressures affecting our project. So there could be a lot many factors, which some of them could be internal and some of them could be external. Now those factors could be documented. They could form like quality standards are impacting our project, but that quality standards are not part of our organization, but they're impacting my project, and therefore they could be documented and I could adopt them. So enterprise environmental factors are things, are conditions, are factors which could influence, constrain, or direct my project. So they can be positive influence, they could be negative influence. They could constrain my project or they could be helpful to my project. It is not that these factors are always going to be negative. Considered as inputs, they are considered as inputs to most planning process, just like the organizational process assets. Enterprise environmental factors are also input to most of the project, most of the processes of the project. As I said in initiation and planning, whenever I'm doing a process, a project management process, I will need organizational process assets, and I'll also need enterprise environmental factors. I have to consider both for doing this job. They may enhance or constrain the project management options. They can be good, they can be bad, they can be positive, they can be negative, and they can be internal or they can be external. They can surround or influence a project success. So project success is directly impacted by these environmental factors. These factors can come from any or all of the enterprises involved in the project. They could be our own organization or the outside bodies who can impact us. So they could come from anywhere. Therefore, they are called enterprise environmental factors. So what do they include? Internally looking at it, we already understand organizational culture, structure, style, and processes. These are impacting my project internally. Geographic distribution of facilities and resources. This again could be an internal factor of my organization. Our organization has got geographically distributed offices and they are causing certain limitations to me on the project. So that is an internal factor. Then the external factor, government or industry standards, which are enforced on us and we are supposed to abide by them. Though there may be some regulations, some written documents, but at the same time, they are actually the factors, not the documents. Regulatory agency regulations, code of conduct, product standards, quality standards, workmanship standards, all of these things are enterprise environmental factors. So they include existing human resources, their skills, discipline, knowledge about design, development, and etc. This is an internal factor about the own human resource. Then personnel administration, how to staff and retain retention guidelines, employee performance reviews, how to do all these things. So these are personnel administration. Company work authorization system is very important in project, but this is not a project system. This is an organizational system. This is an operational system. How does company get the work done? How does company authorize the work? I might have planned what you have to do and I have already informed you on what date you should be doing that job, but that is not enough. The day when you have to start the job, You must seek permission from me to start the job. This is called the work authorization system. As if I can have a record when exactly did you start that job and when exactly you finished that job. So work authorization system is a check and balance mechanism which ensures that all the work is under control within the organization. And if such a work authorization system exists within an organization, then project will adopt that. Marketplace conditions could be an enterprise environmental factor. Stakeholder risk tolerance are stakeholders which are external to us, but their tolerance of the risk matters a lot to me because I cannot plan beyond their tolerance. Political climate, lobbying groups, these may affect my project. Organizations' established communication channels, they can affect it. Then, okay. I think we should stop here because here we start the new topic and we will do it tomorrow. That would be the project stakeholders and governance, and that is going to be an interesting part we will be discussing tomorrow. But so far what we have done is we have talked about the organizational influences. We have talked about the organizational communication. We have talked about the organizational structures and also about the organizational process assets and enterprise environmental factors. And we are just left with, I think, 2-3 more topics and we will be done with it. By tomorrow, we will complete this chapter. I hope so. Any questions?
It's good, sir, for now.
Okay, wonderful. So, I think Rijo did not attend all of the class. He left off early. Anyways, thank you very much for your nice company. See you tomorrow. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Good night.